patient knowledge about contraception methods at the UBMC Samaras Family Health Centers. So this is kind of my kind of proposal and ideas and how I want to implement this. Let's get it started. Okay, so first I'm gonna try to go through quickly about background literature and reason that I choose this project. So I think we all know about unintended pregnancy is very high percentage in the U.S. It's like almost 25% as of 2011, and even though it's declined from 2008, it's still a very high numbers. And there was study about possible factors, including the increasing use of large, mainly IUD at that time, and also reduce the desire of pregnancy due to some economy recession, also around the times of 2008. And then even though large use increasing fivefold in last decade, it still remain very low. When we compare about Asia and Europe versus North America, you can see the number is very different, where Asia has like almost 18% and Europe has 60% use of LAR. In North America, it's just like 4 to 5%. And I also went on studies focus on barriers that prevent LARs being chosen, and one of the barriers identified was the patient knowledge about LARs, like safety, effectiveness, side effects they don't know much about. And as UBMC Samaras, we actually had some data back in 3 years ago about LAR use. It was pretty low numbers, and 25% of patients actually removed their IUD within 6 months of insertions. So that's why I kind of went on and wanted to do this project. And so for populations, I aim at all of the women at childbearing age who are interested in increasing their knowledge about contraceptions, regardless of them having LAR inserted or not, or if they're currently on any other specific methods. If they interested in, they can be rolling. And my goal is to increase 40 to 50% after these interventions, and I plan to do this at 2 sites of the FSCs, the Bloomfield Duffield, where I practice, and also Laurelview.
Just quickly, your goal in terms of increased knowledge of what?
Of the contraception use, contraceptions knowledge, contraception methods, and LARs will be included in that.
So just of contraception overall?
Yeah.
Okay. Not specifically of knowledge of LARC?
Yeah, not specifically, but that includes in when I give them the educational tool, I will try to make it as LARs will appear first.
Yeah, so the only thing, like there's a bunch of new data coming out about like LARC not being, like we shouldn't be pushing LARC. Because there was actually a new modeling study that just came out talking about how if you just took people who weren't contracepting to like condoms or pills, you would have as much impact on reducing unintended pregnancy as if you converted pill users to LARC users. So I'm just, that's why I was just curious if it's contraception or LARC.
So, you know, in terms of the implementations, I aim to increase the knowledge of contraceptions overall.
Overall, okay.
And I'll read more about that. So resources that I would need, it would be pre-intervention survey. I'm thinking of 10 questions, and I'll create those questions based on educational tool that I use. I'm going to show you later. And I'm thinking about 1 questions per method, and we could add extra questions for LARs if the knowledge is one of the barrier. And then I will repeat the post-interventions survey at the checkout. And we would need health professionals. I think staff at the front desk are the most important people in my projects. Also physicians and RN or MA who room the patients. And then educational tools. So educational tools that I plan to use are those postcards. And the resources I have is from national campaigns to prevent teen and unplanned pregnancy. Initially, when I talked with one of my attendings, she's FB attending, she does OB as while we were thinking about, there was a recent educational video that we can show the patients, but unfortunately we couldn't get access to that video. So we comes up with the alternative plan, and I was thinking about using this postcard. I took a look at this postcard, and I think it's pretty patient friendly. So on the left side is the example of how one postcard looks for condoms. And then in the back side, there's informations of condoms, and they have 8 of them in total. I'm thinking of make them like a small binders, 3 rings binders, and give it to the patients so they can flip back and forth and read about it while they're waiting. And also another educational tool that I'm thinking of is a poster that we can post it in the wall inside of the exam rooms for patients to look at, to learn more about how well birth control works. And this is also from the national campaign. Alright, so intervention plan, how I plan to start this is at the front desk. When the patient check in, they will be given the pre-survey. If they're not interested in, definitely they can refuse, and then after they fill the pre-survey, the front desk people will get that back and then give them the postcard so they can read about the postcard while they're waiting at the checks-in. And then when they room in with the MA or RN, they will be encouraged to continue reading while waiting for the doctor to come. And finally, when the doctor comes, he or she can examine the patients and do all the routine of the reason why the patient is here for the visit. And then at the conclusion side, they may ask if the patient has any questions, and they could document the patient. I use the word attitude, but I mean any change of the patient's patient eagerness, how they think when they read the educational tool. They want to make an appointment to talk about that further, or they want to start a contraception use, start a patch or pills, anything that make their behavior attitude change after reading. And then when they check out at the front desk, they will again give the pulse survey, be given the pulse survey to finish, and that be recollected, and then they will be sent home with the answers from the survey that they did today and more educational tools. I'm thinking of apps or website, or even the resource of the postcard that we give to them, that they can continue to read it at home.
Check-in. So which patients will the check-in personnel sort of identify? I imagine you're going to have a set of criteria, for the check-in person to look at and to know who to give the.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
Will it just be women of childbearing age, or
So,
do they have some additional questions at the last time?
So I think mostly women and childbearing age, and at the beginning of the day, they can kind of go through the schedule to see who could be the people that meet that criteria. So they can add the pre-survey in, and then get it kind of ready. And when the patient comes, they can add it into all of the paperwork to check in.
So
And then
if
we'll-
somebody has an IUD already in, for example.
They can still get the educational, because like I mentioned at the beginning, there's the removal rate was like 6 months, so there's a lot of issue with the sustainability even when a patient has the IUD. So I think it's always good to have them increase knowledge and understand about this is important, and they should keep it as it should be. And if they're interested in the student, be sure
Are you gonna have like a script for the check-in people about how they can talk to the patients about the study and about the survey?
That's a good
Sort of the
idea.
informed consent?
That's a good idea. I did not think about that, but I think that's a good idea to add on. Like I mentioned, the people at the front desk will be like my main people in terms of this.
So do you have like a planned educational workshop for them to get them have you gotten buy-in from them to participate in this?
Not yet.
I don't know if you have the resources for this. I actually worked when I was a college
Yeah, I have a feeling like the check-in people are not going to be trained particularly well to do this in a adequate way.
I'll tell you, so in our clinic, when we were implementing the request for research, like the consent form related to whether you want to be in the database, the UPMC database. When we first started it, our front desk staff gives it, the registration papers and all that other stuff, and on a clipboard, and nobody was filling out the research registry form ever. And so then our front desk staff were literally trained. They were given a script to read that was like right by their desk. This piece of paper, and it, was really, and over again, and our rate of getting people signing the research registry increased a lot. But it took repeated training, like 6, 7 times of people going back and forth and watching, because the front desk staff were really uncomfortable giving out things that aren't part of registration, and especially a topic this sensitive, and
Right,
so,
like discussing like contraception in the middle of the waiting room,
Right.
like where you have, like there may be like other patients behind, and here you are talking to a patient about like a fairly private matter.
Yeah, we have like a designated area that we kind of like brought them to talk about these issues once we identify them as a patient. And they're waiting anyway in the waiting room, so you don't feel like you're taking up too much of their time. You're not like, just waiting anyway. So I mean, I think that might help.
I also think like there may, like in terms of like IRB stuff, there may
well, this
be.
is QI, right?
Oh,
I was
okay,
gonna say,
right.
that
Okay.
was one of the, are you expecting the check-in, the receptionist to discuss the survey
Yeah.
with the patient?
Yeah.
Or just to explain this is something we'd like you to fill out?
So I'm thinking that they will, briefly explain that we have we have a study, we have projects that we plan to increase the knowledge about contraceptions. If you're interested in, you can fill the survey and we can give you the postcard. So it's like a brief explanations. I do not expect to, try to minimize not adding a lot of work for the front
Just
desk. And I was
something
thinking about, having another person with me on this project, like a medical student, but I don't know like how frequent he or she could be there all the time to give out the survey.
The other, are you gonna have for like the physician is supposed to like ask and document changes in attitudes? Do you have a form for them that they're like gonna be checking out and then handing back to you, or are you gonna have to be accessing? Because I feel like at some point like that becomes, it crosses the line between
QI and research.
QI and like access to medical patient data, right? Like and research in the sense of like this patient decided to start pills feels like a little bit more personal data than this patient's knowledge improved. And I'm not saying that you can't get access to that, but I think it gets a little blurry in what's patient record and like HIPAA and what is, because that's the conversation with the doctor, and you also can't control for what the doctor said during the visit, and so you have no idea if it's your educational intervention or the counseling that the patient received from the physician that actually resulted in the change of attitudes or changes in contraceptive choice.